A Geza manuscript sits at the Bodleian Library, Oxford. Catalog number Bruce 74. Removed by the Council of Laodicea in 364. Banned, hidden, called dangerous. The Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, 1947. 11 copies of Enoch. More copies than most books that made it into the Old Testament. Chapter 20 names 7 angels, each set over a department of creation. Administrators. Set over. You'll see the names, the fragments, the replacement. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week we uncover what was removed from Scripture. Here's what makes this stranger. The Bruce 74 manuscript is not the oldest witness to the roster of 7. It is one of only 2 surviving Ethiopic copies dated to the 16th century, part of a manuscript family that Robert Henry Charles labeled Family Alpha in his 1906 critical edition. The Scottish traveler James Bruce carried 3 Geza manuscripts out of the Ethiopian highlands in 1773 after 6 years living in Abyssinia. One eventually reached the Royal Library of France, one went into private hands, and one, Bruce 74, entered the Bodleian at Oxford. Before Bruce, the Western Church had known the Book of Enoch existed for over 1,000 years. Jude had quoted it in the New Testament. Tertullian had cited it as scripture in the 2nd century. Clement of Alexandria had treated it as authoritative. And then, systematically, the Western Church stopped reading it. In Ethiopia, alone in the Christian world, the reading never stopped. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church kept Enoch in its scripture. Geza scribes copied it century after century in mountain monasteries above Aksum, above Lake Tana, above the highlands the Arab expansion never fully entered. Then, in the caves above the Dead Sea, the fragments came back. Cave 4 at Qumran yielded 7 separate Aramaic manuscripts of Enoch itself. Catalog numbers 4Q201, 4Q202, 4Q204, 4Q205, 4Q206, 4Q207, and 4Q212. Additional astronomical manuscripts were labeled 4Q2008 through 4Q211, and beneath those, 9 more Aramaic manuscripts of a related work called the Book of Giants, catalog range 4Q530 through 4Q533, a text the Ethiopian tradition never preserved and the Western Church had never seen. Radiocarbon dating and paleography placed the earliest of these fragments in the 2nd century before Christ, more than 200 years before any surviving New Testament document. The text was being copied, studied, and preserved before Christianity existed as a religion. The academic responsibility for those Aramaic fragments fell to a Polish Catholic priest and Dead Sea Scrolls editor named Józef Milik. Milik was fluent in Aramaic, Hebrew, and half a dozen ancient Near Eastern languages. He was, by consensus, the most qualified man alive to reconstruct what the Qumran community had believed about Enoch. In 1976, he published his major volume, The Books of Enoch, Aramaic Fragments of Qumran Cave 4, through Clarendon Press at Oxford. And then, on the material he had not yet released, the Book of Giants fragments and portions of the Aramaic Enoch corpus, he went quiet. He kept the notes. He promised the follow-up editions. They did not come. Milik died in a suburb of Paris on the 6th of January, 2006, at the age of 83. Later scholars, Lorenz Stuckenbruck at Munich, Emile Puech in France, Florentino Garcia Martinez, spent the next 15 years rebuilding from what he had not fully released. Stuckenbruck's own critical edition of the Book of Giants Aramaic material did not appear until after Milik's death, and portions of the notes are still, as of this recording, being reconstructed. What the Qumran community had understood about the angelic order was withheld from academic circulation for nearly 3 generations. And the text does not call them messengers. It calls them, in the phrasing of the manuscripts themselves, holy angels who watch, set over. Chapter 20 of Enoch, in the manuscript tradition Michael Knibb published from Oxford in 1978, opens with a single line. And these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Then it lists them. 7 names, 7 jurisdictions. And this is where it gets disturbing. What we're looking at breaks into 3 parts. The first part is the roster itself. Uriel, one of the holy angels, who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels, who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels, who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Sarakiel, one of the holy angels, set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels, who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Remiel, one of the holy angels, whom God set over those who rise. Every one of the 7 set over a piece of the working world. The second part is what those assignments describe. Tartarus is the abyss beneath the earth. The luminaries are the sun, the moon, and the fixed stars. The spirits of men are what the New Testament will later call souls. Chaos is the pre-creational disorder. The serpents are the guardians of paradise. The spirits who sin in the spirit are a specific subclass of human spiritual failure. And those who rise are the resurrected dead. Read carefully. Chapter 20 is not devotional language. It is an administrative division of the cosmos. Each angel is assigned to a physical or metaphysical domain the way a Roman governor is assigned to a province. Different names, different portfolios, one command structure. The third part is what the church replaced this with. In the 5th or 6th century, a Christian writer who wrote under the name Pseudo-Dionysius the Areopagite produced a treatise called The Celestial Hierarchy. The Dionysian system organized angels into 9 choirs, ranked by proximity to God, focused entirely on the act of divine worship. Seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, angels. Beautiful, devotional, silent on function. The Enochic system, older by 700 years, older by more than 1,000 years than the Dionysian, is not devotional. It is operational. The angels are not ranked by proximity to God. They are named by what they run. What modern readers don't realize is how closely this matches the earliest surviving Christian iconography. The 6th century mosaics at Ravenna, the Ethiopian iconographic tradition preserved in Aksum, and the Byzantine liturgical tradition all retained functional archangel names into the Middle Ages. Where the Latin West narrowed the invocation to 3, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, the Eastern and Ethiopian traditions kept the full 7 with their jurisdictions attached. The Latin West is the tradition that flattened them. The mainstream response is simple. Modern scholarship, George Nickelsburg's 2001 Hermeneia commentary on 1st Enoch chapters 1 through 36, argues that the chapter 20 roster reflects early Second Temple angelology influenced by the Persian administrative model, which is a plausible cultural explanation. But there is a problem. The earliest fragments at Qumran, the Ge'ez in Aksum, and the Greek excerpts preserved by the 9th century Byzantine chronographer George Synkelos all carry the same 7-name roster with identical assignments across languages, across centuries, across communities that had no communication. Every witness independently records the same jurisdictions. Researchers have tried to debunk this. Robert Henry Charles, in his 1906 Oxford edition, argued that the chapter 20 roster was a late scribal insertion into an older text. His treatment became the default posture of Anglo-American scholarship for nearly a century. But there is a problem. Fragment 4, Q204, preserves the surrounding material at a radiocarbon date, placing it well before the earliest Christian sources, which means the framework the roster sits inside was already in place before Charles's proposed insertion could have happened. The Qumran community was already copying the roster that Charles said arrived late, which leaves the question: if the 7 were set over the working parts of creation, who was set over humanity? And what happened when they crossed the line? The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in the year 364. Canon 59 of the Council, ratified by a synod of Anatolian bishops, excluded the Book of Enoch from the approved list of Scripture. The official reason was excessive material about angels. The deeper reason was that the text made checkable claims. It named a functional angelic government with specific jurisdictions, and the Church was moving toward a different theology, one in which angels were worship-focused, not administration-focused. 3 years later, in the year 367, Athanasius of Alexandria issued his 39th festal letter, listing the 27 books that would become the New Testament and excluding everything else. Enoch did not make the list. Jerome, compiling the Latin Vulgate around the year 400, added a dismissive preface line calling Enoch apocryphal in the derogatory sense, meaning hidden and unreliable rather than sacred and set apart. Augustine, in Book 15 of the City of God, argued that the specificity of Enoch was itself evidence of forgery, because true scripture would not need to name and assign angels so precisely. The Ethiopian Church, operating independently of Rome after the missionary Frumentius in the 4th century, ignored all of this. The GEE's manuscripts kept being copied. The 7 names kept being read. Today, roughly 80 Ethiopic manuscripts of Enoch survive across libraries in Aksum, London, Paris, the Vatican, and Princeton. Every one of them preserves chapter 20. When James Bruce brought his 3 manuscripts back to Europe in 1773, Oxford scholars examined the chapter 20 material and, in early 19th century reviews, called the roster theologically irresponsible and geographically confused because it named jurisdictions no proper Christian angelology admitted. Richard Lawrence's 1821 translation was the first English rendering, and when Robert Henry Charles finalized the standard English translation in 1906, he footnoted the roster as secondary material, treating it as a scribal addition rather than as part of the original text. That framing held until Knibb's 1978 Oxford edition read the Geza against the Aramaic Qumran fragments. In Nickelsburg's 2001 Hermeneia commentary, reopened the question at the level of academic consensus. What the Council of Laodicea removed from the Bible was not fantasy. What the Council of Laodicea removed was a working schematic of creation with angels named and assigned. But what the standard translation hides is this. Here's what the translators left out. Chapter 15 of Enoch, verses 8 through 12, in the Ephraim Isaac 1983 Ge'ez translation, in the Knibb 1978 critical edition, contains a passage the Western tradition either footnoted, condensed, or theologized into abstraction. The passage sits inside the Watchers narrative. Chapters 6 through 16 tell how 200 angels, led by Geza and Azazel, descended on Mount Hermon in the days of Jared, took human women as wives, and fathered the Nephilim. The name of the mountain, the text says, comes from the Semitic root harem, meaning a binding oath under a curse. The giants were destroyed in the flood. That much most people know. What chapter 15 adds is what happened to the spirits of the Nephilim afterward. Read the passage. And now the giants, who have been begotten from body and flesh, will be called evil spirits upon the earth, and their dwelling places will be upon the earth. Evil spirits proceeded from their bodies because they were created from above, their beginning and first basis being from the holy watchers. They will be evil spirits upon the earth, and will be called evil spirits. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth. They take no food. They become invisible. The implication, in the phrasing of the earliest witness the text has, is this. The demons of the New Testament, the unclean spirits Jesus casts out in the Gospels, the beings that possess the man in the tombs, and the girl in Philippi, are not, in the Enochic tradition, fallen angels at all. They are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, 2 entirely different categories of being that later Western theology collapsed into one, The anomaly is that there are two categories. The credibility anchor is Nickelsburg's Hermeneia commentary, which treats chapter 15 as one of the oldest strata of the entire Enochic corpus, older than the archangel roster, older than the astronomical book. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 10, preserved in the same Ethiopian tradition, tells the identical story from Noah's perspective. After the flood, the spirits of the giants remain on the earth and begin afflicting Noah's grandchildren, until Noah prays, and God binds 9/10 of them and permits 1/10 to remain, corrupting humanity until the end. Two independent texts, both older than the New Testament, both saying the same thing. The biological implication is that the ancestry of demonic activity in this tradition is hybrid, half angelic and half human. The temporal specificity is pre-flood, before the recorded history the Church accepts. The witness account is Enoch himself, in chapters 12 through 14, delivering the divine verdict to the Watchers from the throne room, where he was carried in a vision. The personal stake is the one modern audiences rarely see stated cleanly. If 1 Enoch 15 is correct about the origin of demonic activity, then the Church's inherited categories are wrong, and the beings encountered in the Gospels are of a category the standard catechism does not name. Researchers have tried to debunk this. Charles argued in 1906 that chapter 15 was theological metaphor, an allegorical explanation of evil that later readers took literally. But there is a problem. Fragment 4, Q 201, preserves the surrounding chapter 6 through 11 material verbatim. In the Aramaic wording is consistent with the Geza, meaning the same distinction between angels in Tartarus and spirits on earth was already in circulation at Qumran before the Christian era began. The category split is not a Geza elaboration. It is original. Stuckenbrook's own work on the Book of Giants fragments 4Q 530 through 4Q 533 confirms the pattern. The Aramaic material treats the Watchers and the Nephilim spirits as two separate categories of being throughout. Some angels are set over the working world. Some angels were set over humanity. The one set over humanity crossed a line, and what they left behind was not another angel, set over nothing. Wandering. The Watchers are named, the Nephilim are named, the archangels are named and assigned. All three categories preserved on fragments the Church did not know existed until 1947. Now, here's where it gets active. In the Ethiopian highlands, the Church of Our Lady, Mary of Zion at Axum, holds the oldest continuous manuscript tradition of Enoch anywhere in the world. Access to the interior sanctum is restricted to a single appointed guardian monk who, by centuries-old practice, never leaves the enclosure. Scholarly requests to survey the manuscript holdings have been repeatedly declined. In between 2020 and 2022, the Tigray War closed the region entirely, with reports of manuscripts damaged, monasteries looted, and religious sites shelled during the conflict. What the Axum Monastery holds and how many of the Geza witnesses survive in what condition is still not fully documented in Western scholarship. In 2019, at the International Organization for the Study of the Old Testament meeting in Aberdeen, Lawrence Stuckenbrook and Ted Erho presented a plenary paper flagging that the Ethiopic manuscript base for standard editions of Enoch remains alarmingly narrow. Roughly 80 manuscripts are known. Only a small handful have been fully collated. Ephraim Isaac's Gehi's translation work has depended on Ethiopian ecclesiastical access that Western scholars simply do not have. Meanwhile, in Paris, the archive holding Millick's unfinished notes on the Aramaic Book of Giants, in portions of the Enoch corpus continues to be reconstructed by Stuckenbrook in Puech, more than 20 years after Millick's death. The delay was not conspiratorial, it was institutional, but it means the fullest picture of what the Qumran community understood about the Watchers, the archangels, and their offspring was withheld from academic circulation across 3 generations of scholarship. And in the seminaries, the reception is quieter still. Peer-reviewed work on the functional angelology of chapter 20 and the disembodied spirit doctrine of chapter 15, has expanded steadily since Nib and Nickelsburg. James Vanderkam at Notre Dame, Margaret Barker in the United Kingdom, Klaus Bayer on the Aramaic linguistic side, Devorah Demont at Haifa, and the entire Enoch Seminar Network founded by Gabriele Boccaccini in the 2000s have all treated the material as a legitimate window into pre-Christian Jewish cosmology. But the material is still not taught in most seminary curricula. Western Church catechisms do not incorporate it. The average believer inherits a devotional angelology that would have been unrecognizable to a first-century Jew reading the same book that Jude quoted in the New Testament. The suppression is not conspiratorial, it is bureaucratic, but it is ongoing, and it leaves an unresolved question. If Enoch was right about the seven, and Enoch was right about the Watchers, and Enoch was right about what the giants became, then why is the version the average believer inherits so much smaller than what the fragments preserve? Now let me be clear. I'm not saying seven celestial administrators are running the physical universe as literal government officials with expense reports and quarterly reviews. The Book of Enoch is not a corporate organizational chart of heaven, but what the text describes when you read it carefully matches something the mainstream catechism does not name. An angelic order with specific names, specific jurisdictions, and specific human-facing responsibilities that were retracted from Western teaching in the 4th century and never restored. The devotional angel the modern believer inherits, wings, harp, silent adoration, is not the angel of Enoch. The angel of Enoch has a name, a portfolio, and a post. The one the church replaced was not a decoration, it was a function, a name, an assignment, a duty held for 17 centuries and never formally revoked in the Latin West. What we have to confront is the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. The Ge'ez manuscripts remain in Aksum, guarded by a single monk who never leaves the enclosure. The Aramaic fragments sit in the shrine of the book in Jerusalem, cataloged and translated. The Malik notes sit in a Parisian archive, still being reconstructed 20 years after the man who held them died. The Vatican holds a Greek fragment of chapter 89, cataloged in quiet, and the 80 surviving Ethiopic manuscripts are scattered across libraries from London to Berlin to Princeton to the Highlands, and no single scholar has ever seen them all. Uriel is still set over Tartarus. Raphael is still set over the spirits of men. Michael is still set over mankind. Sarachiel is still set over the spirits who sin. Gabriel is still set over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. 7 names, 7 jurisdictions, 1700 years since the Council of Laodicea removed the roster from the Bible. 17 centuries of institutional silence. And in that entire span, in every council of the Latin West, in every encyclical from Rome, in every synod that ever convened to speak on the nature of the angelic order, not one of the 7 has ever been reassigned. Not one has been retired. Not one has been replaced. Not one has been given a new department, or told the department was closed, or informed the position had been merged with another. Not one has been notified that the church that used to name them no longer does. The roster the church removed is the roster the text still names. In Aksum, in Jerusalem, in the Vatican fragments. In the pre-Christian fragments, the Qumran community was already copying 200 years before the council that would eventually bury the book existed. They are still on duty, exactly the way Enoch said they would be.